The Heat have won the Las Vegas Summer League Championship. We break down the game, our takeaways from Vegas, and much more in a live episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to a live episode of Locked On Heat, your everyday podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day, Monday to Friday. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com, here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are recording this on Monday night after the Heat beat the Grizzlies in overtime to take the Las Vegas Summer League Championship. We're going to hand out credit cookies for all of Summer League. We're going to give an in-depth look at Miami's replenished development pipeline in a minute. But let's start with the game. A nail-biter to end Summer League, a barn burner. The Heat win 120-118, and Pelle Larsson hits the game winner in the Elam-ending overtime. My big takeaway from this game, David, was I enjoyed so much watching this Heat Summer League team. I enjoyed this championship game more than probably any game from last year that the Miami Heat played during the regular season. This team was so much fun to watch. They took a ton of threes. They scored a ton of points, 120 points. And I know there was an overtime, but it was an Elam-ending overtime, which creates a target score. So there's no time limit. So there's a 40-minute regulation, less than the 48-minute standard regulation. So they scored 113 points in 40 minutes. And then Pelle Larsson makes four of the needed 7 points in the Elam ending. Josh Christopher hits this crazy 30-footer at the end of the shot clock in overtime. This team has been so much fun to watch. It was a comeback in this one where they were down in the fourth quarter, came back and tied it on a and then they came back and tied it. Memphis takes the lead. Miami takes the lead. They're kind of going back and forth. Cole Swider finally takes the lead. They go up 113-110. Gigi Jackson comes back. He ties the game. The game goes into overtime. But this team has had to come back against Oklahoma City, against Golden State, against a bunch of these teams. This team was a blast to watch, and it all culminates on the championship. We don't need your stinking Larry O'Brien trophy. We don't need your stinking playoffs. What have you done for me lately? The Heat are world champions. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm not going to go that far, but it was exciting. It really was a fun game and a really nice showing all Summer League long. That was an incredible game. And you know what? I think Miami was getting screwed by the officiating every time they tried defending somebody. I'm telling you, I don't know, maybe it's just the playoff drought here, but I was getting worked up about the officiating. Londis Williams gets called for a BS offensive charge where he barely brushed against a player. That was ridiculous, forcing a turnover. Should never have come down to it. Whatever.
You're texting me in the middle of this game. You're like, that's a BS
call.
Yeah. This is Summer League. We're talking about Summer. This is the most Summer League basketball I've ever watched in my life. This obviously for obvious reasons here, but I can't believe I'm sort of being facetious, but I'm also kind of excited that the Heat won this thing. It's so dumb.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know in the grand scheme, it doesn't mean anything. Like you think about the past few winners from Summer League, and it doesn't really indicate much of anything. It doesn't indicate you have the best player or anything like that. Although Kel'el Ware, we'll talk about a little bit later, he was actually named to the first team for the Vegas tournament. So that was an impressive showing. We had a lot of good games from a few guys, Londis Williams, Josh Christopher, Pelle Larsson, who you mentioned before. It was fun. It was a great game. I love it. You know what? Let them enjoy it, because the work really begins now for a few of those guys who are trying to prove that they can make it to the Heat roster. And it was a really nice showing. And I think it matters to a certain degree. Like we all remember Max Strus hitting a game winner a few years ago, and then all of a sudden being a breakout player with the Heat when he was actually added to the full-time roster. I think that makes some difference, that you can show that you can make these moments count, that you can step up in big moments. So I think that's great. But overall, yeah, really just a lot of fun. How else can you say it?
Let's talk about Pelle Larsson. Let's talk about some of these guys who stepped up in this game. It was a weird game for Pelle Larsson. He
Yeah.
comes out, scores Miami's first 7 points, but also picks up 3 fouls in 4 or 5 minutes. And he's kind of on. He's on because of the officiating. He's sort of like towing the line between playing a really great game and also almost having to fouling out and not even be able to play in the game.
Yeah.
And he has like this gutsy performance at the end where he tightens up his game. I thought it was really telling to me that so Bisaccio calls a timeout to set up the last play of the game. So a real quick explainer on the eel mending, because I don't think I did a good job at the open of the show. Basically, it's not how regular overtime in the NBA works. The score's tied at the end of regulation. You go to overtime, and basically what they do is they just tack on 7 on the score at the end of overtime, and that becomes at the end of regulation, and that becomes now the target score. So it basically becomes first team to hit that target score wins the game. So there's no clock. There's no game clock. There's only a shot clock. And what that does is it basically guarantees a game winner for every game, which is really cool. And I know the G League is experimenting with this too. The All-Star Game is experimenting with this format. I'm in. I'm totally in. But Bisaccio calls a timeout to set up what could be the game-winning play. And I'm writing down on my notes. I'm like, okay, obviously, Alondes Williams, Kel'el Ware, pick and roll. You only need 2 points. You don't need 3. You don't need to. That's all you need. You need 2 points to hit that target score. Just get the ball to the 7-footer at the hoop. That's the easiest way to get your 2 points. And they don't do that. Bisaccio draws up the play for the second-round pick with the first-round pick screening for the second-round pick. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is a test, right? Because I think Alondes Williams was playing better than Pelle Larsson in that game.
Oh, yeah.
But they said, you know what? Let's give it to the guys who we drafted. Let's see what this is. Let's see what they're about. They tested them, and they passed with flying colors. They ran this angled pick and roll on the side of the floor. Memphis crashed towards Ware, which they had been doing basically all night. Larsson saw an opening, had a little push shot in the lane, got to a spot, push shot in the lane, hits rim, kind of tips back in, roll around, tips in. That's the game. He flexes, and he's I don't know if he's in the MVP of the game, but he hit the game-winning shot. But I thought it was interesting that Miami tested their rookies in that way, in that moment.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know how much of it was a design either. Like, it seemed like it kind of broke down to a certain degree, and then Pelle just said, you know what, the defense did at least break down a little bit. And Pelle just said, you know what, I've got this opening, as you pointed out. I can try to at least get towards the rim. But it looked like basically just sheer will on his part to try to get to the painted area. And the shot, it wasn't like he stepped back and had nothing but net or anything like that. He was kind of like stumbling, falling forward, and he kind of just hits the scoop shot, if I'm remembering correctly. And to your point, it did, again, roll around the rim a little bit. But, hey, it fell, and that's all you need. You just needed the 2 points. So he created an opening. I think he was kind of hoping that either he'd get a foul call and he felt comfortable in his free throw shooting, or that Ware was going to be able to back him up and maybe pull down a rebound and be able to finish with a dunk or something like that, a putback of some kind, or even get fouled himself. So it was just another opportunity to try to find a way to generate some scoring. Look good, whatever. Who cares? It was fun. I think the fact that they went to Larsson, at least at the beginning of the play, it does say something that they did trust him. Despite the foul calls and everything else like that, he really did have a nice sense for the flow of the game. I really appreciated the way he played overall. The fouls were a little bit of a concern, but I think he'll work his way through that. Overall,
well, a quick thing on Larsson on the fouls. Sorry, just a data point. I looked it up. He averaged 3.8 fouls per 40 minutes in college throughout his collegiate career. That is a problem for him. This is a problem. The guy went in the second round for a reason. He's not a perfect player. I like a lot of what I've seen, but hands in the cookie jar a little too much, a little too aggressive, a little too going 100 miles an hour all the time. He needs to kind of, the Heat coaches are going to try to be ironing that out. But again, it was really cool that at the end of this game, he was able to toe that line and kind of strike that balance and say, I could be aggressive enough to where I'm getting the game-winning shot and I'm playing good defense and all these things, and I am going to limit the fouls that were the most important ones, and I didn't foul out in this game.
I wonder how much of it is something that they can curb, because he just seems like he gives a lot of effort all the time. He's constantly pressuring the ball, picking up guys full court, etc. Maybe making up for and maybe making up for some physical limitations, although he's not unathletic by any stretch, but I think he's got a high motor, right? That's for sure.
I think so you wonder how much position sometimes. I think he almost is
He forces it too much.
frenetic, and he just sort of he takes like one extra half step or one step too far one way. Maybe he's trying to jump a passing lane, get a steal. He's a little too aggressive, and I think that's the thing that the Heat coaches have to rein in and say, you know what, just stay between your man and the hoop. Let's just start there, and then be opportunistic after that. And
But
because
by
there
the
was a
same
one foul
token-
in the game where he did just fly right by the guy, and then he kind of
Right.
turns around with it and he extends his left arm and just smacks the guy in the arm. It was an obvious foul, and it's like, yeah, just don't overrun your defender that, or you're the guy that you're covering that way.
By the same token, it's kind of fun to watch though, because you never doubt like the effort is there. Something that you don't always see at the NBA level, excluding summer league. It's just guys giving 110% all the time because they're skilled enough to make up for it. They don't have to give maximum effort. They're using skill and timing more than precision, more than anything else. With Larsson, there's something about watching him dive all over, trying to make something happen. Sometimes it works, sometimes, to your point, it doesn't. But it's still a lot of fun, I think, for fans in particular. I think he's warmed up a lot of the fan base that probably didn't know much about him. Like maybe we were able to predict the fact that he would get drafted by Miami in the second round. But other than that, I don't think a lot of people in the Heat fan base knew who he even was. And they saw him in Summer League and they go, oh, man, this guy's kind of fun. The fact that he is a shooter, that he can get to the hoop, that he has a mix of athleticism. He's got the nice push shot, the floater in the lane. He's got a nice combination of skills and effort that kind of make him a semi-fan favorite. I don't know how that's going to translate into the regular season, but either way, for now, it's something that he can definitely enjoy and build on moving forward.
There's another reason that I really like Pelle Larsson's Summer League. And we're going to talk about that when we get into credit cookies. We're going to hand out credit cookies. It's been a while.
It's been a while. It has. It has. The kitchen has been dark for months now.
Let's preheat the oven. We're doing it after the break.
Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships, like Summer League Championship, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits to LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. And eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Heat. Let us know who you thought was the standout player from the Miami Heat Summer League roster. Also, follow us on your favorite podcast app. We'll talk about whether or not the Heat have fully replenished their development pipeline, what it means for the organization going forward. But it's another Heat championship, David. The first championship since 2014.
Oh, 2012. 2013, sorry. 2013.
2013. First championship since 2013. Which means it's time to hand out some credit cookies. We've got 10 of them to hand out. I kind of wanted to take like a bigger view on this. Not just from this game, but from Summer League in general, right? Because they won the whole dang thing. So real quick stats just for this game, though. We mentioned Larsson. He ended up with 16 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, and a steal and a block in this game. Did have 5 turnovers, but we don't need to worry about that. Josh Christopher, 24 points on 9 of 17 shooting, 6 of 10 from three-point range. Alondes Williams, 21 points on 8 of 16 shooting, 4 of 9 from three-point range. Kel'el Ware, 21 points, 10 rebounds, and a block. He shot 80% overall. Miami in this game, 17 of 34 from three-point range. So 50% on their threes. But to go back to those names, Christopher, Williams, Ware, Larsson. Was not a great game for Isaiah Stevens in this game, but it was a good Summer League overall for him. Those 5 guys, to me, and then Cole Swider with 19 points off the bench for Miami in this game. Those 6 guys for me were the core group. Those are the guys. They're the reason why the Heat are Summer League champions right now. And to go back to Larsson, just sort of tie a bow on this. the thing I really liked about his summer league sort of path, it wasn't good to start. It was not a great opening for him, right? This was a guy who, on like 2 different occasions in Miami's first 4 or 5 summer league games, or 3 or 4 summer league games, shot 30% from the field. There was games where he had as many turnovers as made baskets. He admitted that it was a rough start for him, that he had a hard time sort of transitioning from basically not playing any basketball and sort of the lead up to the draft to he was a little out of rhythm, and he had to find his rhythm, but he stuck with it, and he ended up having his 2 best games of summer league in the last 2 games, this one and then obviously the one against the Warriors that set this championship opportunity up. So I really like that from Larsson. I don't know how many credit cookies he deserves. I guess we could get to that. I don't know if you have a list. It kind of looks like you might.
It's tough. I was trying to put one together even as we're talking here, and honestly, it kind of goes a little deep. Who were the 6 players that you said really stood out to you?
I had Larsson and Ware, obviously the two picks.
Larsson and Ware, yeah.
Alondas Williams, Swider,
Okay.
Christopher, and Stevens.
Christopher and Stevens. Well, we're forgetting 2 really.
Stevens.
Yeah, we're forgetting 2 players because they weren't even available out there for the Summer League Championship. But I mean, Keyshawn Johnson was phenomenal early on until he got hurt. And Jaime Jaquez, who made the second team for the Vegas Summer League, he played in 2 games. He was that good.
Can I just make a rule on this?
Yes.
Jaime gets no credit cookies. He's got
he's got
Reddit credit cookies. He's got real ones from the NBA season. He's got NBA credit cookies. Let's spread the wealth to the other guys. Or you think he needs one? I'll be okay with 1.
Yeah, I think he gets 1. But either
1.
way, then because Keyshawn should get 1 too. And I don't know if he played really well, but he missed the last few games because of the ankle injury. I've got Larsson getting 1 as well. Isaiah Stevens, who's been really good at setting plays up, but unfortunately struggled in today's game. He gets another 1. I've got Swider getting 1 because he pretty much continued to show what he does best, which is shoot the ball. Unfortunately, he also showed some glaring weaknesses elsewhere. I've got Josh Christopher with 2, Alondas Williams with 2, and Kel'el Ware with 2. So I think I gave out 1 extra 1 there. 4. I think that's 11 credit cookies. But you know what? I think that rounds it out. Like I think the guys that really stood out the most were Ware, Christopher, and Williams in terms of their being Miami's most consistent producers. Jaime, of course, was fantastic in his 2 games, but he wasn't there for the California Classic. You had Stevens, who was really he exceeded Zion Pullen as far as becoming a starter, setting guys up. He had a really nice chemistry. His 2-man game with Ware really, I think, helped unlock the rookie big man. That was impressive. As you said, Larsson came on. Really nice games over the last couple, and today's game, in particular in the championship, he was really solid. So I don't know. It's a lot of guys really stepped up. And I know we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but it just shows that Miami has had a really good knack for finding these guys and getting them to excel. I think while they might not necessarily translate into quality NBA role players right away, it does help refurbish Miami's pipeline. And I don't know if you want to get into that topic right away.
No, let's wait on that one. Yeah.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Right,
you can say
no. I just think it's nice to see that Miami is able to continue to find undrafted guys and get them to buy in. Like when our conversation with Kishad, like he talked about it, like Miami's the only place for me because he knows they can get the most out of his game. That if 29 other teams don't necessarily want to see what he's capable of in Miami, as long as he puts in the work and he continues to bring that energy, he'll be a better version of himself later on than when he first started with his team. So I think that's really impressive that Miami continues to find these guys. Even a guy like Larsson, who was drafted in the 2nd round, Alondas, who has been with the team for a couple of years, Josh Christopher, obviously a 1st-round pick. Everybody knows his story, but he's just continuing to grow. And he had some really, really big shots in the championship game.
I mean, I was trying to figure out what my player comp is for Josh Christopher, and I couldn't figure. I was like, obviously he grew up watching Kobe. Like you see that, and he did. Yeah. I mean, he's from the area, I believe, but he kind of, and just stay with me here for a second, okay?
All right.
He reminds me a little of Anthony Edwards in terms of he really does believe every shot he takes is a good shot. Now, you look at his shooting percentages for his career. Not every shot he takes is a good shot. His shooting percentages are bad. There's a reason why the guy was in the G League last year, and he's on a summer league team right now. Also, by the way, point of information, shout out to Josh Christopher, Summer League Championship MVP.
Nice.
Deserving. Officially named. Absolutely, because he's hitting these great shots. That guy, I did this during the game. I went to dictionary.com and I looked up streaky, and it was just his picture. It was just his picture.
Already.
It was that guy could go 0 for 4, 1 for 4, 1 for 5 to start a game, and he's like, that's just because I haven't made the shots I'm about to make.
Look at this. Christopher has a little Dion Waiters.
A little Dion Waiters. It is. That's a good shot by Alex there.
That's all we need. I'm getting a
straight
jersey.
To your heart,
that's
David. Yeah, that's a winner for the David heads. I'm all in on Josh. I shouldn't say I'm all in on Josh Christopher. I'm all in on watching Josh Christopher play basketball. Yeah. Whether it's on the Miami Heat or the Sioux Falls Skyforce, I'm watching him play basketball because it is so entertaining. And that's my big takeaway from Christopher. We'll talk about who gets the two-way contracts here in a second, but that's my main takeaway with him is I like watching him play basketball. That guy is a gunner. He is unafraid. He has a little Dion Waiters to his game. It's a great shout. I love that comp. There it is. One other thing. I mentioned sort of Larsson's path. The other thing I noticed from Kel'el Ware's path, from when he started Summer League in the California Classic and to this championship game, the thing that stood out to me the most in this game and actually in that Warriors game was all the stuff that I told you I was worried about, David, about him. Every time I said this, every time he turned his back to the basket, bad things happen. Every time that guy turns his back to the basket, something bad happens. Stop doing it. And the Heat coaches agreed with me, and they were telling him, hey, north, south, up, down. Those are your directions. No turning around, back to the other basket, chest to your basket. Like, that's all you got to do. And the difference with how he rolls to the basket from when this thing started in San Francisco and even in Las Vegas, that first couple of games, to how he's rolling to the basket now is night and day. It's two different players. And he sets those hard screens, he puts his time into the screen, and then he just sprints to the basket, face up, going towards the rim, not looking to post up, just looking to finish as close to the basket as he possibly can. And that, it seems so obvious, and it might even seem like a little thing, but I'm telling you, it is such a big thing because that's the role for him that's going to be scalable. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be 21 and 10 every night in the NBA. I'd probably bet it's not going to be, right? Because that's an all-star player as a rookie, so it's probably not going to be that. But if that doesn't matter. It's scalable up, it's scalable down. He's like, no matter who he's playing with, if it's Isaiah Stevens, Alondes Williams, Terry Rozier, Jimmy Butler, you can always set a screen and roll to the basket hard. And I love how he's doing that. And you get closer to the rim, and then he becomes a rebounder. He's got 10 rebounds in this game. I thought his effort on the glass has also gotten better as the Vegas stint went on. I am so impressed by his growth in such a short amount of time. And I hope it carries over to the NBA. I don't mean to make too much out of just a summer league experience, but the thing that people had questions about him going into the draft was the motor, the teachability, the coachability, all those things. Based on this sample size, that guy is extremely coachable. And I think that's a great sign if you're the Heat.
Absolutely. I mean, I think he did have one back to the basket where he was matched up with somebody a little bit shorter, but I mean,
in this game, and it was a broken down play. It was a broken down play, and he had to go get it.
And you know, other than that, though, it was basically just rolling to the rim, kind of a lot of broken offensive possessions where somebody was out in the perimeter and they said, you know what, let me toss it into the big man. He'll go get it. And he absolutely did. And he has the size, the length, and he had the motor to just go after it and try and make something happen. So I think he definitely evolved over the course of Summer League. I mean, the three-point shot, I think it's a lot of what people hoped that he might be able to bring more consistently. Unfortunately, that really wasn't a factor during Summer League. The touch is still there, and I think overall, like, he even hit when nobody else was, Ware was hitting free throws. So I think that's a really encouraging sign, is that he does have nice form on his shooting touch. I think it's great to see him as a big man be able to have a nice soft touch around the basket as well. And he knows how to finish through contact. There are moments there, and I think a lot of people might agree that there were moments there where he did look a little lost, or at least not making a direct impact. I think his conditioning.
There was one play where it looked like he was tying his shoe in the middle of the game.
Yeah,
I don't know if you noticed that. It was like in the fourth quarter. I was like, dude, head up. Come on. Game's still happening. But I'm with that stuff. They'll iron it out.
Yeah, I know. If he's just playing 10-minute spurts, and like we're going to debate throughout the rest of the summer, you know, whether or not he's going to be a starter or what his role is going to be. I think you could play him for 10 effective minutes, whether it's off the bench or as a starter alongside Bam and Adebayo. and you could probably get a lot out of him in those 10 minutes and keep him at a higher enough energy and still be able to utilize him as a really solid weapon. And again, he's so young. He's only 20. He's a rookie. You can't expect him to be a full-time starter and play 30-something minutes a game. He's just not there. I don't think he'll be there anytime soon. But you can continue to develop him and grow and see if whether or not he can start implementing that outside shot a little bit more consistently. But for now, at least just having him be this big physical presence around the rim is more than enough, and certainly something that Miami's lacked in years.
Kel'el Ware, you're right. Who knows how much this guy's going to play in terms of rotation minutes, whether or not he's going to start, come off the bench. You say 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 15, maybe it's 20. We'll find out, right? And we'll continue to learn more about Kel'el in training camp and in preseason and all these things. But we know he's going to be part of the rotation. The one thing we don't know is who's going to be on these two-way contracts. And some of these guys who got these credit cookies, they're in position to maybe get one of these two-way contracts. They have 3 of them to give out. I think all 3 of them are probably up in the air, although I do think I have one lock in terms of a two-way contract. We're going to talk about who gets the two-way contracts after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We all love sports. We're here in a live episode celebrating Summer League. That's how much we love them. We never want them to stop. But you know what? The playoffs have wound down, other than Vegas, of course, and we get fewer games into sports. Well, they're just not sportsy the way you want them to. But FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want, because all you've got to do is open up the app and you can dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers, new, old, whoever, with a boost or a bonus every day. That's right, daily. There's something for everyone all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at Locked On Heat. Let us know who you think should get these Heat two-way contracts. You can also follow us on your favorite podcast app. Let's get to some of the questions. We have a few of them that were dropped in the comment section. I have a couple of them for you, but let's start with this one from the comments section. I think it's a good one. Nick asks, can we hang a banner like the Lakers did for their in-season tournament?
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know if anybody else has done that in the past, but I doubt that Miami. I think the only banner that's going to get hung up is if a gold medal is won by Team USA, and Bam Adebayo will get another banner celebrating his last Olympics and this one as well. So I don't see the Summer League one getting a banner.
I'm going to hang a banner in the background for the podcast. I'm going to have something right here. Just
whiteboard banner.
The whiteboard banner right here. Yeah, I'll do that one. We get a banner here. All right. Seabats writes in, who would you guys give the 3 two-way contracts to?
I am absolutely torn on this. I have no idea how to move forward with this, because I thought based on what we'd seen early on, Keyshawn looked like an absolute lock. I think he still is, because the Heat tend not to look at injury, especially a short-term one like this, and kind of take away what he was able to accomplish, not just here, but also in the California Classic earlier. So I think he's still likely to get it. But other than that, I mean, Alanis Williams continued to make a strong case. His shooting was fantastic. There were moments there where he just looked, you know what? He shouldn't have been out there either. Like, he could get to the basket whenever he wanted. He could pull up and hit from the perimeter. He looked fantastic offensively. I think he's had a few games like that. That being the case, he made a strong case for him to get a two-way contract. But Cole Swider, again, whatever other limitations he has, you can't deny that he is an elite shooter. And there were some really nice big shots that he hit today as well. There was one in the corner where he was fading away, very Duncan Robin-esque, very little space out there in that corner, and he drained that 3. He makes a strong case for himself as well. And right now, neither of them are under contract. They're both unrestricted free agents, which means they could sign with any team. So I don't know if Miami's going to extend one of them or not and offer them a two-way contract. It's certainly going to be a question to look forward to and seeing if an answer comes about with any kind of clarity over the next few days. But Josh Christopher, I think he certainly earned the opportunity as well. And other than that, I'd say probably Isaiah Stevens gets some consideration as well as a ball handler. But I think Stevens is the least likely of those candidates. So if I had to narrow it down, my picks would be Kashad, because I think his size is certainly going to be a benefit for Miami. And then you've got to go with Alondas, who I think they trust and has been with the system for a year. And then probably, I don't know. It's between Christopher and Larsson.
Okay, let's talk this out. Let's talk this
I'm
out.
sorry, Christopher and Swider. Excuse me.
Christopher and Swider. Okay, so
yeah,
I've got my lock as Kashad Johnson. They feel very strongly about him. He's the only one of this group that is that. He's the only real forward with that level of athleticism. And we have seen the Heat make bets on those guys before, whether it's Caleb Martin, Haywood Highsmith, whatever.
Yep.
So I've got him as a lock. I've got Alondas Williams as probably my most likely number 2.
Okay.
You already mentioned the fact that they've already invested time in him. We have seen the Heat do that when they can. There is a wrinkle here, though. Like, what if Alondas Williams has played so well that somebody offers him a standard roster spot? Right?
Well,
and more power to him if that happens. But the Heat don't have standard roster spots, and there's no way for them to create one right now unless they trade somebody into somebody else's roster spot, which they have been either unwilling or unable to do so far this summer. And by the way, you don't trade a proven rotation player for a guy who played well for 2 weeks in summer league. That just you don't do that. That's an irresponsible thing to do as a front office. As much as we might be hyped on these guys, you just don't do that. But I've got Kashad Johnson and I've got Alondas Williams, I think, as my guys, as long as none of these guys get signed elsewhere. Right. And then I think I have it down to Isaiah Stevens or Cole Swider for the third one, where you had it Swider or Christopher.
Wow,
My issue with Christopher is that I don't know that his game is scalable to the NBA level. The whole Dion Waiters part of it, he's not getting, like, if he starts 0 for 4, that's it. He doesn't get to shoot his way out of his slumps at the NBA level, right? That's taking shots away from Bam and Jimmy and Tyler and Duncan and all these other guys. Terry, I just don't see that happening. But I also think that the Heat have invested time in him for a reason. He was part of the G League roster last year. They've been working closely with him since May, getting him ready for this. I just wonder if they'll be a little scared off by the streakiness, because if he's my question to the Heat's front office and coaching staff would be, if he's not making shots, what's he doing out there? And I don't know that what he does out there is better than what Alondas Williams can do more consistently when when Christopher isn't making shots. I think Swider is just obviously a way more consistent shot maker. You put him on the perimeter, he spaces the floor, he makes threes. I know he's going to be able to do that at the NBA level. That's scalable whether or not he's taking 2 threes or 6 threes in an NBA game. It doesn't matter. And then with Isaiah Stevens, to me the question is, do you just feel like you want a true point guard on one of those two-way spots? And that's sort of where I'm at, is between Stevens and Swider. They're both kind of specialists, where the other two guys in Kashad Johnson and Alondas Williams are versatile enough that I feel really good about them on those two ways. Because you do want versatile guys on the two-way contracts, because you never know when they're going to play. They don't get regular rotation minutes. They're playing because if somebody is injured. And so the more versatile these guys are, the better it helps you as an insurance policy based on injuries on whoever is injured in front of them on the roster. So in terms of the two specialists, I think the Heat would have to decide, okay, do we want the true point guard? And in that case, we go Stevens, or do you want another 3-point specialist in Cole Swider, who we've invested a year into already, and we're going to go with him?
Yeah, I can't see Stevens being such a high risk that he'll sign with another team, that they would invest the few two-way contracts they have in a player like him, who has obvious limitations. He's not really a scorer. He's not really he's a earnest defender in any case, but I mean, he was in foul trouble today.
And he's 6 foot
I just
tall.
think he's undersized. And so he's a guy you like to have, and you hope that he continues to put in the work. And if he does, well, maybe there'll be a spot down the road and he can earn a two-way contract later on. But I just don't think he's going to get it based on what he's done so far, based on just his playmaking. I mean, you're right in that's an elite specialist skill that he has. I think there's concerns about everything else he does. And again, I don't think any other team is dying to snatch him up. With Cole, you could see a lot of teams just kind of lining themselves up and convincing themselves, hey, this guy's 6'8", 6'9". Like, I mean, he's a great shooter. We don't have anybody like that in our system. And he's not.
He shot well all of Summer League, just all of it. The one game that he didn't was the last one, but that was it.
Right. Was it the guy on the roster last year? Doug Peterson, was it? I think, he's another guy like that. Yeah, sorry, Drew Peterson, and that the Celtics wind up signing as a two-way guy. There's always interest around the league in somebody like that if you can find somebody with that skill, and it's the fact that he's unrestricted also I think makes it a very appealing thing as well. So I'm sure he'll get some callers, somebody's going to offer him a two-way contract. I just don't know that it's Miami. So that's why
Well, I
it's
think
kind
the
of
way that
between
works, by
him.
the way, too, is just because somebody calls up his agent and says we're going to offer you a two-way doesn't mean he accepts it right away. You can then call
No
the
doubt.
agent, can call Miami and say, hey, we got a two-way offer from Brooklyn or whatever. And
Right.
are you guys planning on giving Cole a two-way? Because I think he would prefer to stay in Miami than move.
Absolutely.
But that kind of comes down to it. But like you said, I mean, what if it's not a two-way? What if it's a regular roster spot? And then if you're Cole, you got to go. I mean, and that kind of opens up, I guess, one of these two-way contracts. If I can make the case for one other guy who I think is probably a long shot at this point, but deserves to have a case made for him, Zion Pullen. They offered him the two-way contract right away for a reason. How much do they believe in him despite the underwhelming Las Vegas Summer League? I think people make too much out of Summer League both ways, right? A good Summer League doesn't necessarily mean anything. A bad Summer League might not mean anything. If the Heat love this guy in the pre-draft process, I don't think they'd just be willing to cut bait because of a bad week and a half in Vegas. So maybe that's something that I'm not taking him off the table. And then obviously Drew Smith, the other guy on the two-way contract. The Heat love Drew Smith. They have a love affair with Drew Smith. Until he's not on the two-way, he's got a chance at the two-way. And even when he's not on the two-way, he has a chance at the next two-way also because it's Drew Smith and the Heat, and they're connected at the hip for some reason. So, so that's where I'm at on that one. Okay, I've got a couple more questions for you before we kind of get out of here. We hinted at it earlier. We can explore it a little bit more now. Do you see this as something meaningful in terms of Miami's development pipeline? Because I'm looking at this group. This might be the best sort of pipeline squad I've seen since the 2016 Sioux Falls Skyforce, which won the G League championship, right? Like, this is a group where we're having real debates. I didn't feel like this last year, where it's like, wow, there's 6 or 7 or 8 guys who I think have a legitimate shot at getting one of the 3 two-way contracts. This is a great group. And I was talking about how Miami, even during the middle of the season last year, needed to replenish their pipeline. And it feels like they've done it in about 2 months. They've kind of done it.
Yeah. Kind of ridiculous to say that because it just seems like, one, I don't think any other team does it as well as Miami does, and certainly not this quickly. So to think that you could lose a guy like Caleb Martin in free agency this year, that you could lose Max Strus and Gabe Vincent last year, and that Haywood is now obviously the factor that he is on the roster, but you've got other guys that are going to slowly put in the work, keep growing and filling in those spots at the end of the roster. And a year from now, we'll be talking about, can you offer this guy a contract? Has this guy shown enough in whatever games he's played for Miami at the big level? And can he get a contract here or elsewhere? So Miami's going to have some tough roster decisions next offseason. I know that's kind of looking ahead, but I think it's realistic. We're talking about Josh Christopher, who was the MVP in a finals game, who has been a fantastic scorer for Miami Summer League team, who's had some really great big games and hit some really big shots. And he might not even be two-way contract worthy as a former first round pick. Like, that's kind of ridiculous, when you think about it, because clearly the guy has some talent. So you wonder whether or not, I think he's going to be able to find a role in Miami or elsewhere. And if they don't offer him the two-way, I'm sure he's done enough. He's learned enough in Miami, I think, where he's stabilized to a certain degree. And I think he's shown flashes of that potential that made him a first-round pick in the first place. Alonda's a guy, again, he had big games going in and out of the league before as a two-way guy with Brooklyn, if I'm not mistaken. And then, he's continued to grow and develop. And I think he's turned into a really, there were moments there where I was really glad to see him because I really like him. He's always been very good and friendly and everything else like that. Good locker room guy. He's just always seemed really grateful for the opportunity. And he was there as a vocal leader out on the floor telling guys where to go on offense, on defense, and just kind of really establishing himself.
One of the things that Pasacchio told him, by the way, this summer was, you're a leader. Believe it or not,
voice out there.
Like, you are. People follow you. He's got such great charisma about him. And I know a lot of people listening to this show might not know that because he's not in front of the media a lot because he's on a two-way contractor in Sioux Falls all the time. But you interact with him, and he's got a natural charisma about him. And Bisaccia was basically telling him, like, you are whether you like it or not, guys are going to follow you. And to see him sort of embrace that, I thought was really cool this summer. And I think it speaks to that's the sort of guy that the Heat want to invest in and probably put on a two-way, right? Because they brought him on a two-way last year. And I think he's got maybe an inside track on being on a two-way this year if he doesn't get a roster spot somewhere else, which kind of feels like the worst-case scenario is that they just lose Alondas Williams and Cole Swider and maybe another one of these guys to a roster spot somewhere else. But like I said, I think sometimes we make too much out of a good summer league and maybe too much out of a bad summer league. I don't know that there's a lot of front offices saying, hey, a good week and a half in Vegas, we got to make sure we offer somebody that's guaranteed money.
Right.
Maybe that might be more of a wait and see for them as well.
You didn't answer that question there. Do you think that they've replenished their pipeline to a certain
extent? No, I thought I did. Yeah, I thought they basically did it in a month and a half, and since June, it just feels like. Obviously, there's always guys that you can add to it. And by the way, the Heat were in Vegas just like all these other teams, looking at other teams' Vegas rosters. Like guys are going to shake loose from other groups too. And if they get some guys scooped up of their roster, maybe there's a guy that they liked on another roster that they could scoop up. So there's that. Last question I have for you here. Does this run matter in terms of anything? Does winning the Vegas championship matter in terms of maybe building momentum, good vibes, karma? Call it whatever you want. Does that matter for this season coming up?
No. All it takes is one training camp practice where Jimmy says, I don't give a damn about what you did in Vegas. This ain't Vegas, baby. This is Broward County.
Boca Raton, baby.
Yeah. This is a completely different thing. I mean, and that's kind of what you have to do. You have to, as soon as you kind of get that momentum, it's nice. You put that in the back of your mind and you just, on to the next one. And I think for all these guys, whether they get the two-way or not, it's all about continuing to build and put in the work and show Miami's coaching staff that they are ready for more and more challenges, and then to do it against actual NBA players, which is, training camp. That's where they'll actually have the opportunity to showcase some of this stuff. It's nice. It's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it immensely, but no, it doesn't mean anything.
I don't think it does. And if you look at the teams that have won the G League champion or the Summer League championship in the past, the Cavs won it last year. They had a good year.
Oh yeah.
But it didn't really mean anything. So they beat the Houston Rockets. They beat the Houston Rockets in the championship game, and that team was in the lottery. The year before that, the Trailblazers won it.
Yeah.
And that season was Lillard's last year. That was derailed by injuries. So maybe who knows what would have happened if Lillard was healthy. I'm going to go ahead and guess that they weren't better than the Denver Nuggets.
Who starred on that team? Like who was the star player on that?
Now you're asking me questions I have no answers to.
2 years ago? Like I can't even recall who was
who they ever took before Scoot, right?
Ago. Oh, Anthony? Was it? Yeah, that's what it was.
Oh, you know what? Anthony Simons is one of the best summer league players I've ever seen.
That's what it was.
That guy was like Josh Christopher, but always making shots. Like,
and now everybody's kind of been like
not missed a shot in Vegas.
Right. But now everybody talks about him as just being kind of an overhyped scoring wing, and you don't really need guys like that around the league. He's not better than Tyler Hero or something like that, or he's comparable to Tyler Hero. So I don't, you look at the past championships, and to your point, I just don't think anybody's looking at that and being like, okay, no, we've got something. We've got the building blocks for a bright future.
Right. You know who has the most summer league championships?
No, Sacramento.
Okay, give me one guess.
Sacramento?
That's exactly right.
Damn, I nailed it.
Sacramento Kings and the Portland Trailblazers are tied with 2 Summer League championships apiece. And now the Miami Heat have won. We're going to hang up the banner. The Miami Heat 2024 Las Vegas champs. Let's go, baby. That'll do it for us today. We've got more Summer League takeaways coming to you after we digest this wild ride overnight. We're going to sleep on this. Have more Summer League takeaways later on. Also, later this week, we're going to talk about some players whose roles are probably going to change next season. We got that. We're still 5 episodes a week here on the Locked On Heat channel. The road to 15,000 subscribers on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Thanks to everybody who tuned in on a Monday night in the middle of July to celebrate this Las Vegas Summer League championship.
Summer League, baby.
Have a great night, everybody.